All right. For those of you who are jumping on, my name's Jamin. You know me. I apologize. I didn't realize I had to click the little live button. Thought it automatically went live. So, welcome to the live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about the logistical challenges of moving up here to Alaska. And I have my good friend who is very patient, Nicole Cleary, and she works for a moving company. And she's going to be answering all the questions that we could possibly have about moving up here. Just a couple of housekeeping things real quick here for those of you who are jumping on. The best live streams are the ones where we have as many comments, as much engagement as possible. So if you guys do have questions, this is going to be the best place to do it. Also, I have a website issue right now. I'm noticing I don't know what happened, but those of you who might be trying to reach out to me through that, probably the best way to do it is to just do so through my Facebook page right now. And yeah, without further ado, Nicole, if you can just re-say everything verbatim that you did for the last couple minutes. So we were kind of talking about the big logistical pitfalls that a lot of people don't think about as they're moving up here. So
yeah, so one, especially during COVID, that I run into a lot is people that are wanting to ship their goods and drive through Canada. And I do get quite a few calls where I tell them not to do that because you get to the border and there's specific stuff that you cannot have on your history as a human to get through Canada. And a lot of times we'll get phone calls, hey, we can't get through Canada. Can you help us out? So I always tell people, call Customs and Border Protection. Make sure you can get through in advance so that you can not have these issues when you hit the border. That's one thing that can cause issues moving up here. I mean, there's just so many that you can think of that I can think of. In particular, you mentioned about how moving stuff to make sure stuff that's fragile doesn't get broken or whatnot. So we use the barge system, Alaska Marine Lines and Matson for specific moves depending on where you're at. So that way your shipment can be loaded into those containers and not rehandled when they get to the Port of Washington or to our office to be transloaded. Transloading your shipment is a huge, we try to do our best, I should say, so your stuff doesn't get damaged, but the more you handle a shipment, the more likely your stuff could get damaged. So
it's actually when you're switching like between barges or switching from barge to, that's when the damage can actually happen.
Yeah, when you have to take a large shipment out of a container and put it into a container coming to Alaska, a lot of times you do your checkoff and stuff, but the more you handle a shipment, the more likelihood that there is something that is going to get damaged. I mean, even in a shipment that you load into a container or whatever containers you use, whether it be a wooden shipping crate for smaller moves or a large container like a 53-foot AML going to Juneau or Skagway, depending on the mode of transportation, sometimes those have to be offloaded into a different container, and that alone could have damage to your goods. So, ideally it's good to reach out and make sure you get a survey done. Then we can decide what mode of transportation you need in order for you to make sure you don't have those damages.
Gotcha. Okay. So how many like offloading, like switching modes of transportation will there usually be if we're going somewhere that's a little bit more common, like let's say Matsu Valley, Anchorage, we might even say Kenai Peninsula, somewhere like that.
So when a shipment gets here, if it's on one of our through vans, often we'll have to offload it into a smaller truck if it's a smaller shipment. Going to the Kenai Peninsula, that's a really dangerous road. We do send our trucks, our big tractor trailers out there. If it comes up on a 53, 45, or a 40-foot container, we'll hook up to those and we'll go. So logistically, we can do that. We can pretty much anywhere in Alaska. The only time that there's going to really be extra handling is if you go to the King Salmons, the Dillinghams, any of those villages, because we can't drive there. So then you're offloading, you're palletizing, you're flying it out, and then you're sending a crew out. So It just depends on where you're actually moving. If you're moving to the Matsu Valley, we really don't have to handle it. If it's on one of our through vans or in one of those other containers, we just hook up and we go and we deliver.
Right. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So for someone who's coming up from the lower 48, what timeline does it usually take to get your stuff from point A to point B? And obviously that literally is as much variety as if you were coming from anywhere in the country. So
Yeah.
let's
So
say Miami, Florida. We'll do the extreme, and then we'll do Washington to get the other extreme.
so it depends on when you're moving. So right now we have one sailing a week in Alaska, one sailing out, one sailing in. So unless you use Matson or the barge service, and it's a little bit different. But if I had somebody asking me for a quote coming from Miami to Alaska this time of year right now through into February, I would be telling them 5 to 6 weeks transit time
Gotcha. Okay.
at the
And that's
worst case scenario. Yeah.
gotcha. Just kind of on the worst side.
Yeah.
What are some things that can, like, is there anything they can do that's going to make it kind of a quicker transition period, or is it just that's just the logistics doesn't really matter anything else you do?
During the summertime, things move a little bit faster because we have 2 sailings with tote. We use Tote Motion Trailer Express for our trailers. So the transit time, there's 2 sailings a week. You have one on Wednesday, one on Sunday, and that's routine all the way through. It's not until the winter time when that cuts back to 1 sailing a week. So if you want a faster transit, ideally you'd want to do something more so in the spring, summertime. But when you're getting into our time frame now into February, you got 1 sailing a week, and then weather dependent, there can be delays. Even if the shipment got here on time, we may not be able to deliver you right away because of the weather, our scheduling, or anything like that. So that plays a lot into the factors as well.
Gotcha. And I mean, that's, yeah, it's also assuming we're not having earthquakes or hurricanes in Florida or anything like that too.
Yeah, that will play a factor.
Gotcha.
We won't have one of those again for a while.
Yeah, hopefully not. I guess we had a hurricane of our own up here too. So
Yeah, we did. It's what was it? Nome? Yeah, Nome.
yeah. Which actually, let me pull that up here on the map for those of you who are interested. I have an idea for what we're talking about, because I've had some people reach out. They were really concerned that, really concerned that I was in harm's way up here. And not so much. So this is going to be kind of the South Central Alaska right over here, Anchorage, Matsu Valley over here. Let me go in just a little bit more so you can see it. So yeah, this is going to be kind of South Central Alaska. Nome is way over here.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of people live over there. So,
No.
I mean, we had a pretty large storm that just rolled through there and just wrecked that whole area. But, you know, when most your state lives over here, you're not going to hear a whole lot about it.
Yeah.
Yep. So let me ask you real quick then, what are some things that people can do that's going to help them kind of prepare to move as they're, trying to get this figured out? Because, a lot of people, they kind of get overwhelmed once they start looking at it, and they don't really start breaking it down into bite-sized chunks that they can actually, start working towards. So
Yeah.
what are some things that people can start doing?
One of the things most people are concerned with is cost. So like I said, if you're moving north, it's going to cost more money to move here than it is to move out. One of the biggest things that I always tell people, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't used it, or you haven't moved it in over 6 months, then you don't need it. If you're worried about cost, get rid of it. FacePage is a great marketplace to sell your stuff, make some extra money to put it towards your move cost. There's that, and plan accordingly. So if you're wanting to plan your move in May, you want to start planning your move in January. You want to be on a moving company's books in, let's say, February or March for May. Because if you wait till the last minute and call somebody, we're booked. we're booked for May starting in April and March. And during the summertime, book a month out, book 2 months out, just so that you have that time frame to like start going through stuff. You want to get your survey done so you know how much weight you have. That gives you an idea of what you can get rid of to lower your weight, to lower your cost. You want to make sure that you get and select your mover of whoever it shall be and make sure that they're legit. Go and check them on Better Business Bureau, Yelp, Google, check the ratings. If you have any questions, you can call Better Business Bureau is like my number one go-to. They're great. If they got a high rating there, then you've got a good moving company. So stuff like that will help.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely check that because I've heard some stories about some smaller operations in like towns. And I don't want to bash them or anything just across the board, but
Yeah.
sometimes where if they're the only show in town, then sometimes their attitude is, well, you don't like it. Well, what are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah, then you're SOL.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
just
the Dakotas of the world, the New Mexicos of the world, any of the Dakotas, south or north are very extremely hard to move in and out of. We have for our Atlas drivers prefer not to go into those areas. So if you're moving in and out of those areas, you want to really get on the ball ASAP. If you know you're moving in a year, get on the ball because then we can logistically try to figure out a pack and load spread where we can have a driver just come in, pack and load you. It's an Atlas driver, a qualified driver. You're not getting two men in a truck. You're getting a real mover. And so in those areas, you definitely need to plan in advance.
no, I totally. That's kind of strange hearing you say that. For some reason, I would have thought like the Dakotas would be a slightly more aggressive Oklahoma and just kind of being flat, but it's actually pretty tough logistically, huh?
Oh yeah, that's like probably we get moves from there, and occasionally we're like, not really that great. It's very hard to service because drivers don't want to go in there, and
Really? Is
we
it just like
only
so
have.
windy or?
It's we don't have but one or two Atlas agents in those areas, and so when you only have one Atlas agent and you have to use an Atlas agent, you're at their mercy. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just one of those locations that is very difficult to service, but we do it. And I've moved a bunch. I've got one going on right now. It's great. I actually have one of my drivers from Seattle is swinging in and grabbing her. But I mean, it's, you have to have a 10 to 7 day pickup window to give a driver time to come in there and pack and load direct, which like in this case is loading on one of our trailers that's coming direct to Alaska. So it's a great opportunity.
Right. Yeah, so yeah, going all the way from South Dakota to Barrow. That'll that'll be the new trend, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some questions here. So let me go and pull this one up here. And this comes from Alicia. And it is it worth doing a combination between shipping your stuff on a container and driving part of it up on the Alcan? So I'll let you go ahead and weigh in on that.
Well, the thing is when you're moving, it's based off of weight. So however much weight you have will determine what your cost is. The lower the weight, the higher the rate is, but the less you pay. And then you also risk of, can you get it through the Alcan? Do you know what the rules and regulations are, what you can and cannot ship? If you don't know that and you get to the Alcan, you could be turned around and then you're going to be calling saying, hey, can you come and get me? Or can I drop this stuff off in Seattle and then have it picked up? Or, have you guys pick it up or drop it off in Seattle? So
is that something you guys see fairly often?
The last couple of years, yeah, quite a bit. Yep.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed just across the board with trying to get across the border that their job isn't to kind of roll out the welcome mat, but
No.
it's but just in general, but the past couple of years, it's kind of been
it's
ramped up. Yeah.
And also you got to remember, so what I would do if it was me personally, I would get a quote of moving all of my household goods from point A to point B. And then I would take that quote and then I would figure out the gas, the hotels, the food. Do you have kids? Do you have pets? All of that plays into a factor. And if it equals out to be more than if you hired a moving company, then hire the moving company and get a one-way ticket from Seattle or wherever you're at to Alaska, and you're saving yourself money essentially. So I mean, that's what I would do.
Right, right. So are there any things? Let me just get to the next question. That's probably going to answer that. So next question we have here is, what about firearms? So if you were, I mean, that's just kind of the nature of people moving up to
Yep.
Alaska.
Yep.
We've got guns.
Yep.
So for
I
people
can
trying
ship
to bring guns up here, what's the best way in your experience to go about doing that?
If you're moving with us, we can ship all of your guns. We just can't ship ammunition. Ammunition is not allowed. Any hazmat materials is not allowed, but firearms are allowed. We ship them in every shipment pretty much, unless it's a specific account that will not allow us to ship them, then we don't. But if it's just you moving and you have 100,000 guns, if you want us to move them, we'll move them with your household goods. I hope you don't have that many guns, but you never know.
Yeah, I was about to say, you might have a couple questions, but
Yeah, I'm being a little worried there.
just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess for the ammo, you can't ship that.
Nope.
Do you just get in contact with like a gun store up here and have them
Um,
ship it, or how does that work?
yeah, you can do that. You can also, if you're flying in, you can also carry it that way. Carlisle out of Anchorage or Washington, you can get with them. They do ship ammunition in and out of Alaska. Um, don't think Alaska Marine Lines does. I don't and never have asked them. Typically, I leave it up to my customers to figure out how to get their ammo here, but I do give them Carlisle's name. They're a good recommendation, or do gun dealer to gun dealer for ammunition. Some people just carry it on them on the airplane if they don't have a whole lot.
Gotcha. Yeah, I helped someone move up here a little while ago, and he had like thousands. And no, wait, I take it back. He had thousands of rounds at the time, but he found out, not at the Canadian border, but found out with the Canadians that they would allow, I think, so don't quote me on this, but I think he said you can get up to 500 rounds going through Canada, just not the actual firearm.
But I think that might be dependent on what the firearm it's used for. So, like handguns, you can't get handguns through Canada. So, if you have ammunition for a handgun, they're probably not going to let that through. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I would think that that would be common practice.
Yeah, I would think so too. I mean, just kind of the Canadians being Canadians. That's what I would expect.
Yeah.
If you're Canadian, don't roast me in the comment section. All right. So let me go ahead and move on here to a couple more questions, just kind of for myself. So for a lot of people, like being really budget conscious, I'm sure is something a lot of people are trying to be aware of as they're moving up here. What are some other ways they can try to? I mean, we talked about kind of consolidating stuff down. Are there any other things they can do that, if they're really budget conscious, and let's just say that's the most important thing, that would be something good for them to know?
I mean, like I said, ultimately it's based on weight. So if you have less, lower the weight, then the less the cost is going to be. If you have a lot of books and you have somebody here in Alaska, mail them book rate or media mail. That's a good way to get rid of some of that. But ultimately, however much weight you have is what your cost is going to be based off of. Most quotes are good for 30 days. So you could get a quote in advance and then have a survey done and then re-quote and help you get rid of stuff. But again, if you're moving into Alaska, everything you buy here is more expensive. So is it really worth it to get rid of those items? One thing that I have done with other customers, especially here in Alaska, is they'll have a studio apartment and I'll tell them, rent a U-Haul, bring it to my warehouse. We'll help you load it into our dock. We'll inventory it, do the whole thing. We're just not picking it up. And then load it into the crates and send it down. Typically a crated shipment is 1 to 5 rooms maximum, which fit into these big crates that we ship with the military. That's your best bet in and out of Alaska for a cheaper move. But again, it is based off weight. So if you want to keep your costs low, you want to keep your weight low.
Right. Does it go off of volume at all?
The only time volume plays a factor is when you have a crated shipment. So 1 to 5 rooms, that's 1 to 5 crates. And the cost from Seattle to, let's say, Arizona is based off of volume as well as the weight. And it goes off the gross weight, not the net. So when we do a crated shipment, we do it based off the net weight. So you're not charged on the weight of the crate. You're only charged of the goods that are in the crate. So it does play a factor, but it's not a huge factor. So typically because of the volume of a crated shipment, it's so condensed. You're not using a 20-foot container. You're using a crate that's 85 by 45 by 85. They're small. They're like a pod, like that they use in the lower 48, and they're now using here. They're like a U-Haul pod. So they're small and they're condensed. And ideally with those, you want to get as much as you can in the least amount of space. So that way your transportation from Seattle to wherever isn't going to be high, and it isn't going to affect it. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. So as long as you're not shipping like 2,000 pounds of toilet paper, you probably should be okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd be good.
Good deal. Have you guys seen an increase in, because I mean, I know gas is really going up here. How has that impacted y'all and kind of the prices at the end of the day to the consumer?
Well, we hadn't had a rate increase for our transportation in a while, but we did. We've had a rate increase on our pack because of the packing material, the wood, and everything.
Really? So the transportation rate hasn't gone up, but the material for the wood has.
Transportation has gone up. Yeah.
Oh, it has. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. It has. It's gone up quite a bit, especially with the new fuel. I mean, fuel being as it is, our fuel surcharge is super high. But not only is it that the fuel surcharges and the fuel increase, but you do have the more increase for the packing materials alone, for the boxes, the paper, the wood for the crates, stuff like that. So overall, it was a huge jump this year.
So, I mean, I know it's the $1 million question. When we're talking about moving, let's see, I'm trying to think here. Let's say like a family with about 3 kids. How much tonnage weight would you expect for a family of that size?
So a good rule of thumb, and I always tell this, and it's pretty accurate for the most part, is 1,000 pounds per room. Doesn't matter how big your family size is. It's the number of rooms. So that's not just your 3 bedrooms. It's 3 bedrooms, living room, dining room, kitchen. You don't have to count the bathrooms unless you got 20 of them. But then you've got your bonus room, your office, any garages, sheds, and stuff like that. Each one of those, if you have a 2-car garage and it's fully packed, that's considered like 3 rooms. So on a household of 3 kids, full family, all of that, typically the weight can run anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 pounds. It just depends on how much they have in there. I've seen a family of 3 that has a house, in Golden View, and they have like 8,000 pounds because their house is virtually empty. And then you get the same family somewhere else, and it's so packed full that you just don't know. I mean, you do a survey the best you can to figure it out, but it could be, again, 10 to 20,000 pounds. Those are big shipments. Usually a full family is going to be up there into the 10 to 15,000 pounds.
Gotcha. So if we're looking at let's just say like 10,000 pounds, and they're trying to move in from somewhere, let's do something a little medium, not quite Miami. Let's do something like Colorado. So let's say someone's moving up from Colorado to South Central Alaska. Obviously, it's not going to be precise.
Oh, it's not going to be precise. I'm going to throw it off the top of my head, and it's going to be high because it depends on the different modes of transportation. So on the high side, just throwing it out there, you're looking at probably 280 per 100 pounds, so $28,000 northbound from Colorado, and that's on the high side. We have different options for modes of transportation, so we can, especially here in Alaska, if you're moving to Alaska, do not contact anybody down in the lower 48. Contact a mover from Alaska, because we know the tricks of moving in and out of Alaska to try to save our customers money. But on a shipment coming northbound, and even the 280 per 100 is probably on the lower side. I mean, it can be, in Florida, I would be saying about 390 per 100 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that doesn't sound really that off the wall. Like that sounds like it's pretty on the money.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Have you been following like the local politics and the kind of the name bashing back and forth with
Yeah.
Kelly Shabaka? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
those of you, yeah,
So, yeah, I actually was listening to that this morning, and when they said $80,000 for a move, I don't know where she moved out of, but unless she had, there's just no way. I mean, I moved a lady, and this is just moving to Washington from here, and she had 30,000 pounds, and her move didn't cost over $60,000, and that was a two full trailers, full packing, accessorials, everything. So for her to have, no, there's no way.
yeah. Well, I don't know, because the issue is, like, for those of you who aren't aware, we have Kelly Shabaka. She's running for the Senate, I believe, Congress. We'll just say Congress. That's it's a safe term to use. So she's running for Congress, and prior to that, she worked over in Juneau. Juneau is kind of a more remote capital, and she was moving over from Washington D.C. So way polar opposites, like sides of the world. But kind of the campaign the other side's running right now is they're saying, well, she spent $80,000 moving up here, and all on taxpayers' dollars. And like I don't know, like what would be normal. Also, like, I guess it also comes down to kind of the time of year too, does it?
Not really, not for Juneau.
Okay.
Depending on, I could get logistics on this for you and tell you probably the exact numbers, but going to Juneau, depending on how much weight she had, you're using the barge system. If they used Alaska Marine Lines and she was in a full 53-foot container, but then you get into Juneau, then there's other issues. A lot of those places, they're not accessible. And then you got a shuttle charge. And if she had any bulky items and there's lulls, it could technically be going to Juneau. It could easily be that, depending on who she moved with, what the discounts were, how she moved in there, when she moved in there. If you move into Juneau in the winter and you got a shipment loaded in a 53-foot container, they can't deliver that like that in that container. So they have to do a shuttle. So, yeah, depending on how much weight she had, yeah, it could be totally 80,000, especially in Juneau. Here, not so much. Not in Eagle River Anchorage area.
Yeah, if you're paying $80,000 to ship stuff to Eagle River, Anchorage, yeah, you better get on the phone with somebody.
Yeah, there'd be an issue there. That'd be a red flag.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
So really kind of my last question here, really on the logistical side. And for those of you in the live stream, if you have any other questions about that, like this is your chance. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Are there any household items that are a little trickier to get to Alaska?
No, we can pretty much move anything. UTVs, ATVs, snow machines, kayaks. We prefer not to move boats. And if you were to call me, I would be telling you to call somebody else for the boat, depending on what it was. So obviously, if it's a yacht, no can do. If it's just a little duck boat or a kayak or a dinghy is what they're called, I believe. Then those we can move. I can't say that we've had anything that I haven't been able to move outside of a big, huge boat, like on a trailer. for the most part, I've moved an airplane. Believe it
Really?
or not. Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually just had a quote from a guy moving an airplane. It was disassembled, of course. It was one of the small little float plane type deals. It can be done. It's a little bit more expensive because it's not household goods, so the commodity is different. But I mean, I've been doing this for 20 plus years, so you name it, and I've moved it. You know, I don't really have an issue. And if somebody tells me this is what I've got, this is what we need to do, I'll figure it out one way or another. And if I can't, I'll be very forthcoming and to say, I'm sorry, but I can't do that.
Yeah, we can't get your private menagerie of elephants up here. Sorry.
Yeah, no animal. I always tell people, and I joke, no animals, no kids, and no live plants in the containers, please. And they always laugh because they're, obviously they're not going to send them. But that is one thing, though. If you do need help with moving your pets, your mover should be able to help you with that. We will not move live plants. It's just not something we can do. They'll die no matter what time of year. It's just not something that we would move. But unless you're moving locally down in the lower 48, we can help you out with that.
Gotcha. And Atlas Terminals really doesn't want the PR nightmare of killing people's plants. So nobody wants that.
Yeah, no.
So I've got a couple questions here. SBR Colorado just asking a question about the shipping ammo. So we kind of talked a little bit about that before. Probably your best bet is to, was it Carlisle?
Carlisle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So go ahead and get a hold of Carlisle, and they're probably going to be your best source. Either that or call some gun shop up here and see if they can have it brought up here.
Or you can call a gun shop in your area and have it shipped up to one here.
Yeah. That either one of those works.
Yeah.
Let me answer the one from Diane Campbell. Well, I guess we'll let you take this one. Cost and time frame to ship mid-size SUV. Diane, can we get some more information? Where are you coming from? Give that just a second, but yeah, let's say, just for the sake of conversation, it's coming in from Georgia. Okay, so it's coming in from Georgia.
An SUV. So we don't ship autos. We don't even ship them with the household goods. We use Reindeer Auto for our shipments, or locally Rightway Auto Carriers. Off the top of my head, from Georgia, depending on what kind of SUV, you're probably looking anywhere from $3,800 to $4,300 right now, and that's door-to-door service.
Yeah, and that does sound pretty on point. I mean, I've talked with somebody recently when he brought some vehicles over from Hawaii, and that sounds pretty within the ballpark.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Got another question here from SBR Colorado. Do you think it's worth to fly and buy a new car up in Alaska or attempt the drive? Let me I'll take a stab at this one real quick and see what you think. So really, you have to kind of step back and take a look at your vehicle first off, and go take a look on the local Facebook Marketplace stuff up here, and try to get a sense for how much that vehicle is going to be worth in this market and how much life you have left on the vehicle. Usually lately, I'm going to say it's probably going to be worth it to maybe make the drive and just make that work. If you have to put it on a barge, you certainly can. It's, like Nicole was saying, it's probably going to be a couple $1,000s. I'm assuming if you just drive it up yourself and put it on the ferry or with whatever barge it is and get it up here that way, I think that could work. But lately in this market, I've seen it gets very expensive very quickly when you're trying to buy stuff after you get up here. Obviously, it's a lot easier, but you're probably going to be paying some, you're going to be out of pocket really no matter what here. So it's just a matter of, are you going to be more out of pocket by selling it and taking that money and then buying something that's more expensive up here, or keep what you got It's kind of a known quantity to you. Put it on the, get it shipped up here, and then, you're going to be paying more for it that way.
Yeah, and you can also, I mean, if you're coming north to Alaska, check out Alaska Marine Lines. You can get on Alaska Marine Lines, load your car full of your household goods or whatever you want to bring up here, pretty much, and pay that fee and drive with your car. Beautiful scenery too, you know.
Yeah, it is. I actually just talked with somebody who did that just a little bit ago. The main issue he ran into is they, like a lot of people, they went and camped out on the deck, which is all fine and good when the weather is good, but
Yeah.
it was great for the first day, not so much for all the other nights after that. It was just raining the entire time.
Yeah, I would say that's dependent on what time of year you're going to be traveling to. So,
Yeah, so maybe get a cabin
yeah.
on the ferry as you're coming up here for that.
Yep.
All right, good deal. All right.